It's interesting when you work with young people, and we have so many high school and college-age kids that are at camp all summer, and they need to learn how to work. So the best way to teach them is do it with them. And so that's why you get experience like doing everything at some point. My latest thrill, since we had the storm, some of you have kept up with that, is I learned to drive our skid steer. And yeah, you just shouldn't put me in one of those. But it's a long story, but now I'm grooming the ski trails with the skid steer, which is a lot more fun than how I used to do it. Only I found out on a icy hill like this, you could kill yourself. And I was out there for quite a while, and thankful it didn't roll on me and some other things, but I'm learning how to do that. So the experience usually comes with some kind of price, I'll tell you that. And the funny thing is, Dan, who's the sweetest guy ever, and he's been running our maintenance department forever, he said, well, what were you thinking? You know, when you're sliding down, I thought, Dan's going to kill me. You know, if this doesn't kill me, Dan's going to kill me, because I'm not this skid steer in the middle of the woods, and he's so opposite of that. So he just kind of smiled like, yeah, right, that was going to happen. What would have happened is he would have come out there and just got it out in about 30 seconds. And instead, I spent an hour trying to get it out. So I did get it out. So we're good there. I want to take some time and talk to you about the importance of relationship. This is, you know, when you think about relationships, you know, everybody knows, okay, relationships are important. So I don't need to stand here and tell you that, because we already academically grab that. Here's what I would like you to know, though, that you're so made for relationships that when you're not in relationship, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to be depressed, you're going to be angry, you're going to be all kinds of stuff because you're not in relationship like you should be. You were meant to be in relationship. And here's what happens a lot of times. The good in our life is taken by Satan, and he uses the good against you. I used to play football in college, and one of my favorite plays was, actually this was in high school, because I only played defense in college. In high school, when I was an offensive lineman, one of my favorite plays was I forget what we called it, but you take the guy coming in, just take him where he's going. You know, so if he's going this way, just keep him going that way. The running back would hesitate, look where we're going, and he'd find the hole. You know, so it's kind of like take the momentum, take what he's doing, take what he gives you, and just make it more. You know, I mean, keep him going. And so I thought, oh, that play I can do. I mean, that one, he's already going somewhere, I'll just help him go. And it was like my favorite play. I could be All-American if that's all I had to do. And what I find, though, is Satan takes stuff that's really good in our life, really good, and he uses it to destroy us. He takes what momentum we have and he says, okay, I can make you take this to another degree, another level. For example, you and I were meant to be in a relationships. We're created that way. But here's how Satan takes it, and I'm going to say this all the way through the time I talk to you. What he wants us to do is have relationships with things that you can't have relationships with. Since you're made to have relationships, he wants us to have relationships because we're going to do that, but he will have you have a relationship with your lawnmower. Your car. I was talking about a friend of mine, he's got this car, he fixed it up, he's in Arizona, and he fixed his car up, and he's in Arizona, and it's always in a garage. And I asked him, do you ever take it out? Well, only once in a while, only if it's perfect weather. If it's too hot, I don't take it out. If it's rainy, I don't take it out. He said, and he dipped every part so it would never rust. You know what I mean? It's sitting in a garage in Arizona. I thought, that's nice. But what good is it? When I talk to him, I think he has this love for this thing. Like, weird. I told him, could you please leave that to me in your will, and if you die before me, I'm going to drive it in the snow. Right, because that thing needs snow. Well, you fix it up. Here's what I want to warn you about. It's so easy for us to love what we should use and use what we should love. What did that guy say this morning? Take that down, I'm pausing. There are things in life that you should use. You should. People aren't one of them. Relationships, you don't use them. Hey, we're in a messed up culture right now. We don't know what the word love means. We don't know what the word relationship. I mean, we don't know. I mean, you hear, people in Washington talking about we need to love one another. Like, right. Do you even know what that means? Let's take a look. In the beginning, God created. God created the heavens and the earth. When you start right at the beginning of the Bible, you think, why did you create? Because you love it. God doesn't love the earth. He uses the earth. You go through a whole Bible, you see that. He loves us. And he uses the earth for us. He uses the resource that he's created for those that he loves. Not only in the beginning did God create the heavens and the earth, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heaven, over the livestock, over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created male and female. He created them. This is not rocket science here, these words. It's pretty simple. God says, you know what? I made this for you. So I want to identify with you right from the beginning. There are some things in life that God made for you to use. And there are other things that God made for you to love. And Satan is in the middle of this getting it all mixed up all the time. For some of us, see, this stuff in our life has become actually what we love. We know that the love of money is the root of all evil. And I imagine anyone that loves money, God shakes his head and goes, that's weird. God, I didn't make you to do that. That's just odd. I gave you money, but to use. For what? For love. I gave you the money so you could use it. So use it, please. Yeah, but don't let it control you. I didn't give it to you to control you. I didn't do that. You see, we begin to just start right at the beginning of the Bible, and we sort things out immediately. We begin to see that God is one who he's not anti-stuff. He's not. He created the world. But he's anti-putting things in their wrong place. Having priorities that are all messed up. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living creature. I love this. What's different between a rock and man? He didn't breathe breath into it. Little girls like it when I describe men being created by a pile of dirt. They were too. And we were. We were created basically by a pile of dirt. God created it and then breathed into it, and this dirt became a living soul. And in one strange way, I'm this organized pile of dirt walking around, alive. This body, by the way, isn't to be loved. It's to be used. Because it's leaving one day. Those that know me well know the body's just about worn out. I've said, I hope when I leave, I'm worn out. I don't want to have a whole lot left when I leave. I want to know that it all got used up somehow. Given away, used up, whatever you need to do, because you didn't get it so that you could preserve it. You gave it so that you could use it. Now, think of how dangerous it is, though, if you start taking any of the philosophy that I'm giving you from the scriptures and transferring that. Like, you would never use people, though, and you wouldn't use relationships that way. You use stuff that way. And God divides it that way. We are people. God formed us from the dust of the ground. I would have loved to have seen that original man, pile of dirt, come to life. I just would have loved to see it. I mean, all of a sudden, this dirt was this. Excuse me, I inhaled my saliva. Then the Lord God said, it isn't good. It really isn't good that man should be alone. There was nothing out there in the whole world that could satisfy man, so he created woman. Look I still tell young people, God made man, He made woman, He made them different. Deal with it. That's the way it is. In fact, He didn't make us to be alone. And I'm talking to young guys in college, high school. He's talking about, yeah, I'm going to live in my own place. I go, don't live alone. Why? Don't live alone. You'll mess up. You weren't made to be alone. You were made to be in relationship. First and foremost, you're made to be in a relationship, in this case, with Eve, with a woman, and you're made to be in a relationship with other people. You're made to be in a relationship with God. We can go through the Bible, and I can show you that. You're made to be in relationship, so make sure you're in relationship, and you're not isolating yourself. You need to be in relationship. Yeah, well, I spent a lot of time in front of TV. You use TVs, you don't relate to them. Here's a modern problem that we're having. Children today growing up, young people today, have no real life. They've spent their whole life watching other people's lives, whether it be on the screen or media, whatever it might be. So they have no life themselves. So they have no one to relate to other than the fake people that they've watched. You don't have relationships with fake people. You know, it's really weird. There are places in the world where they're having robots that they've made that will respond to you that you could marry and have a relationship with because you're so lonely. You use robots, you don't have relationships with them. See, Satan's getting in our heads here. You don't have relationships with these things. You use those things. You see, God said it's not good for man to be alone. Each one of us need to understand that too much time isolated, too much time from people, we're going to be messed up if we do that. We weren't made to do that. Amen. You weren't made to be alone apart from God, so you need to have that relationship with Him. You weren't made to be isolated from other people. First of all, if you were in the last seminar, you realize I was talking about the importance of living a life where you model in front of people. Well, if you don't have relationships with people, your modeling doesn't matter. Who are you modeling it to? Some of us, we consider relationships really hard, so we just don't want to be in them. They're really hard. You know what you're really saying? The relationships really aren't about me, so that's too hard. It's really hard to make relationships about me. Well, they're not about you. That's the problem. You're trying to do something you can't do in the first place. Good relationships aren't about me. I'm to love the Lord my God. I'm to love each other. But it never says, you need to love yourself. It assumes that I already do that. What I understand is I am a relational being, and part of Satan's strategy is to get me apart from all the relationships in life that I should be a part of. It says, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. There's a relationship there that they're to have. We don't use our wives. We don't use people. We love them. We're in relationship with them. We guard them. It's a different relationship than we have with our car. It's a different relationship because we don't have a relationship with a car. But see, we don't know what we're talking about because we use all these words that are all messed up. I mean, I can love my wife and I can love a pizza. All in the same word, same sentence. What did I just say? I really don't love a pizza. I can live without a pizza. There's a whole different idea, my wife, than a pizza. I should really be careful how I use those statements together. Because what happens after a while, we don't know what we're talking about. It all blends. God made man in His image and woman from man. And God looked on all creation and concluded that man could not be in a relationship with any of it other than woman and himself. That's pretty simple. So Satan works on us to get us to have a relationship with stuff. How important is stuff in your life? How important is it? I mean, how important? And when you start to think about why do I have stuff? Is it evil to have stuff? No. Does God want me to have stuff? He made the earth, by the way. There's a lot of stuff in the earth. So He made stuff. You can fill in the blank with what the stuff is, but He made it. It's yours. Oh, and He's glad that you're using it, by the way. That's why He gave it to you to use. He didn't give it to you to worship, He gave it to you to use. In Matthew 22 it says, and He said to them, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind See, there's this relationship you have with God that is exclusive. It's totally exclusive. Nothing else can have it. Money can't have it. Stuff can't have it. Nobody else can have it. I have this relationship with God. Now, we all know that if you're going to be honest, and you're made for relationships, what Satan would love to do is get you to minimize that first and foremost relationship, because that relationship affects all the other relationships. Just like marriage affects all the other relationships in life. So, a young guy, gets married, and after he gets married, they come back, I see him, and I ask the wife, I see her somewhere, and I say, so how's marriage? And, this one girl asked me, and I said, terrible. I said, phew. Normally you don't hear that after a week. And I remember, how's it terrible? She said, well, you know what? I make dinner, and he doesn't come home. He went with the boys afterwards, to whatever they do afterwards. Went to the bowling alley with them, and then got up early in the morning, went fishing with his buddy on the weekend. And I see the guy and I go, do you know you got married? Yeah, what's the deal? No, relationships actually change how you live. The relationship changes how you live. You don't change, the other way around. You change because now you're married. So here's what you do. You two are one. That's the way God made it. So first and foremost, you need to spend time enjoying and loving God. If they look at me like, what does that mean? All right, let me help you there. That's number one. If you're not in a relationship with God, I have no way to help you because you're made to be. So young people come, they're suicidal, they're depressed, they're angry, and I look at them, one of the first things I say is, well, tell me about God. You believe in God? Yeah. He said, okay. Well, in my head, I'm going, well, you're not acting like it. So let's see. Okay, you believe in God. So do you have a relationship with God? And they look, if they look at, what do you mean? Okay, you're out of relationship with God. Anyone that's not in relationship with God, that's meant to be in relationship with God, which is everybody, then there's a point in life where life doesn't make any sense to you. Why? Because it doesn't make any sense apart from a relationship with God, because that's what you were meant to do in the first place, is be relational with God. So if that's the problem, get that straightened first. And that's why Jesus came to earth, so we can be in God's family, we can be in relationship with Him. So let's get that straight first. Then He made you be in relationship with each other. How important is your relationship to your spouse, your family, your friends? How important is it? It should be right up there. Is it more important than your job? Is it more important than your house? Is it more important than your money? Your reputation? I don't know is it more important than fishing? I remember when I moved up to Wisconsin, I grew up in Chicago, so we didn't fish there, except for in the sewers. Didn't catch anything desirable in there. And I remember I came up and I couldn't believe how the people in my area, they were so possessed with this fishing stuff. Possessed. It's the only word I can use. A lot of them didn't spend any time in relationship with their families because they were always out fishing. Now look, there's nothing wrong with fishing. I do it myself. I like fishing. But I remember as a young man, I thought, you know what? I want to do something to guard myself here. Here's what I want to do. Because I didn't start fishing yet, so I didn't get into it. And I thought, my children are little, and most of the guys I talked about fishing, they're never home, and I'd like to be home. I'm not going to fish. I'm not going to get a license. Now, I'm not against fishing. If you hear me say I'm against fishing, I didn't say that. I have a license now. I'm an empty nester now. I go fishing every day if I want. But the bottom line was, I thought, I don't want to be away from my kids and my wife that much, and I've already got a lot of other things pulling me away. I'm not going to fish. Well, then my daughter started showing interest in fishing. I said, all right, this is my opportunity. We'll get a license. I'll get one. You don't need one. Let's go out. And for years, I fished with them. But they were with me. I did it for the relational thing, not for the fishing thing. Now, some might say I only fish for a relational thing. That could be. I have no idea. Good for you. That's what it's about, really. It's about relationships. And it's not about fishing. It's not about ice fishing. It's really about relationships. And now, none of those things are bad, but can you see how Satan can take those things and just elevate them to the point where you actually have a better relationship with your fishing pole, which you shouldn't have a relationship with at all, than your children. There's nothing wrong with fishing, by the way. But there is if you have a relationship with it. Likewise with hunting. Likewise with watching the Packers. You see, I was made to love God with all my heart, soul, and mind. And that's the first thing I got to look at. And then I was made to love my neighbor. I was made to love you. I was made to love other people, have them in my life. And love means look at them and think, what can I do to make your life the way it should be? See, those are the two things. So I think, what can I do to love God, and what can I do to make your life what it should be? God says, by the way, there's no more commandment after that. That's it. That's what I made you for. So here's what happens. What I know is that everything else I have, my time, my talent, my money, my car, needs to be used for those two things. I learned this from my dad. He's a pastor, and whenever he'd go out and get a car, his first thought, I remember my mom and him talking about it, was, okay, what kind of car do we need to get that can haul kids to church? And he had started Silverbirch Ranch where I'm at today. He goes, what kind of car do we need to get that can haul kids there? You know, haul kids and stuff, because we're always bringing stuff up. His whole decision-making process was, how can we get something that enhances the relational part of what we do? That's a good question. I remember I was talking to a businessman once, and he was talking about a mistake he made hiring some really good-looking receptionist or something. And he was saying, yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I really, really like how she looks. And I sit at my desk and look at her, and now what do? I said, fire her. He said, Dave, you can't do that. Do you know anything about HR? I said, no. But I know about relationships. He said, I can't do that. I said, well, then sell the company. He goes, you're so radical. You know what? Honestly, my brain is working on the line of relationships, not your career. What would you do to protect the relationship you're supposed to have with your wife? How important is it to you? When I was in sports in high school, it was starting to be where everyone was possessed by sports. I remember I went I was a swimmer in high school, and I went and talked to my swimming coach, and I told my swimming coach, it's going to be hard being a swimmer, and I said, well, on Monday nights we have a high school club at our church, so I'm going to have to leave practice early. On Wednesday nights we have a prayer meeting at church, and then we have a meeting for us leaders who work with kids, and so I'm going to need to leave early on Wednesday. Oh, and on Thursday nights, that's when I have the club for kids, and I'm going to need to leave early on Thursdays. I remember the coach looking at me, and he goes, thank you. I said, for what? For having some kind of conviction about something. He wasn't a believer when we started swimming, my brother and I, but he was by the end. And I remember my dad said, well, that's pretty normal. You just told him what's important to you. And why? Swimming wasn't your life. That's not what you loved. You loved people. And you rearranged your life so you could be with people and minister to people. You thought you should do that. Same, I was serving at camp all those years, and I served at camp and you didn't get paid at all. And you served there. And yet, I was in these positions, and I was playing football then. And I told the football coach, I said, well, I can't get back during the two-a-day sorry. And he said, so? Then you probably won't start. I said, that's fine. He goes, that's fine? Yes, that's fine. I knew something. I knew if you're good enough, the coach would play you regardless if you just walked in off the street. I mean, so he could say whatever he wanted. But I said, I'm not coming until this date because I got other things that are more important to me to do that have to do with relationships. And it's not that football can't be relational, it can be, but it was like, here's where do you know that God never, ever in my life made it so that those things didn't work to positive somehow? it was so valuable for me to see mom and dad who thought relationships were important with kids and people. They'd rearrange their life for it. They started camps. They did all kinds of stuff. Why? You know why my dad started Silverbird Trance? It was because kids needed to get out of the city. They needed to get up to a place with an adult that can be a significant adult in their life and spend time in the woods together, learning the Bible, learning to fish, learning all that kind of stuff up there, so they could have an impact in their lives, have a relationship. Today, we do the same thing. I mean, everything that we do is like, let's put a zip line in. Why? So that families and individuals and friends can just come here and have a good belly laugh while they go down the zip line and almost kill themselves. You know, let's do that. See, it has to do with relationships. That's why you have a zip line. It has to do. If you come to camp and you see, decisions were made years ago that when you come to camp, all the horses, all that stuff's free. Why? Because we used to have poor kids come and they couldn't do anything, and rich kids could do everything. It's like, no, relationships. Let's just make it so everybody can do it. Why? Because it's relationships that isn't paying that bill. So let's do that, and God has been faithful. Amen. Make your decisions because of your loving God and your loving people. Get in the mind frame that my relationships have to precede everything else in life. Mm-hmm. All my time, my energy, first and foremost, is for healthy relationships with God. For me, years ago, I realized I'm a morning person. If I get up early, that's when my mind is sharp. And I said, God, that's when my mind's sharp. That's when I want to meet with you. I don't want to give you the time where I can't think anymore. Now, I have narcolepsy. If you've heard me on the radio, I've talked about that. Nighttime is not good. And there are times where I just, honestly, there are times, and this is how relationships put you through things. There are times where I cannot keep my eyes open. I can't do it. And if those times come, I will close my eyes and I will just lean back. And you know what I find myself doing immediately when that happens? I say these phrases: God, I love you. I love you. Thank you. God, I love you. And I think, okay, this narcolepsy could be a relational thing. I got it. Every once in a while, I got to just stop and remember who you are and connect again. Because you see my personality, I can get into things now. I can get into grooming. I can get into things. And all of a sudden, all the stuff in my life, it's the stuff. You look at it, you think, you must love stuff. Look at all the stuff. And the stuff controls me. The stuff. Then I start caring about the stuff more than people. I care about the stuff more than God. I don't know how many times in my life I've come home and told Linda, we're getting rid of everything. Like, the stuff. Yes. I've just realized the stuff just took over. Everything's taken over. Once I gave away 2 snowmobiles, a fishing boat, and 2 ATVs. I gave them away. I said, I can't handle this anymore. Who wants them? It wasn't hard giving them away. Today if you come to my house, I don't have the fishing boat anymore, but I got 2 ATVs. It's like, how does this stuff happen? It accumulates. It's still stuff, though. I think I'm older now. It doesn't have the place it used to have. I was made to love God. All my stuff should reflect that. Satan usually attacks by trying to use our strength against us. He uses the momentum, man. That's just the way it is. I don't want you to forget that. What happens a lot of times, we're off guard because what we're doing is good. I got this stuff. Nothing wrong with this stuff. Nothing wrong with fishing. Nothing wrong. These guys want me to go trout fishing with them, and I said, okay. And then I realized I don't even have a pole anymore. Last year I ran it over with something, and I've got to figure out. I will get one because there's young guys that want to go out in the woods with me and do something, and it's relational, so I'll go get one. Do you know you don't even have to be an expert if you're thinking relationships. You don't need to be an expert at something to do something to just enhance a relationship with people. Every year I set goals on something I want to do as I get older that I've never done that I thought I should do. And this last year there's this spot I call Boulder Creek, which isn't really Boulder Creek, but I didn't know the name of it because I discovered it one day when I was on horses and I couldn't figure out where I was. But I found it. It's one of the most beautiful spots in the whole national forest. Got this creek going through there, and it's full of trout, and it's gorgeous. And I said, I got to get out there again and actually trout fish in that thing. I've been here 50-some years, I haven't done it yet. And so I thought, okay, so I went out there and I actually learned how to do it. Then I went and I found 2 young guys, and I said, do you ever trout fish? No. Come with me, I'll teach you. I've been out once. But immediately my brain went to, you know how to trout fish now, sort of. I did catch trout, so I must have known. Now, everyone who's a real trout fisherman makes fun of me because of the way I fish, but I'm telling you, I catch trout. So I don't know what you're making fun of, so it doesn't matter to me. And the reason I went trout fishing was because I wanted to, once again, meet with God out at that spot. And then I wanted to use it to try and enhance my relationship with some young men that were on our staff. Today, one of them, when he talks to me, they come up to me all the time now. One of them's got 38 spots on a map he's got to check for trout fishing. They're trout nuts. I'm thinking, you have been far more than I ever have in my whole life, and all I did was take you out the second time I went. It's really fun to see the relationship that developed from that. Because really the trout fishing should be about that, relationships. I'm not against, by the way, going out and just meeting with God and catching a trout and having lunch. I'm not against that either. But again, notice it was meeting God out there and just enjoying who God is. And I don't know how many guys have been out hunting and they say, what a great time with God. Love is the basis of all relations. We get it wrong, we get everything wrong. Romans 5:6-8, for while we are still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps a good person, one would dare to even die. But God showed his love for us, that while we were sinners, Christ died for us. What God did was he looked at us and said, you have a great need, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to meet it. And you realize then it gives me even the choice of whether I'm going to accept it or not. He just was somebody, God is relational. He says, you have a need, I have the resources to meet that need, I'll meet it. Yeah, but what if I abuse your provision? That's your problem. I don't know how many people have wondered, do we think that we should withhold our love and our resources from somebody because they may not use it right? Just talking to somebody at some books down there, and it says, here's how much it is, and I'm not there, and who do we put in? I said, just put the money in an envelope. Or if somebody steals it, then God will deal with it. In other words, really? What we do in life is we develop these relationships that everything about it, whether, the book that I wrote down there, it's on My Shepherd. Again, everything about that book's relational. First of all, my wife is a teacher, I'm a teacher. I thought, wouldn't it be fun for us to go through a process of creating a children's book that would draw people to God together? Not only that, there was a young girl who was a gifted illustrator at Nicolay Buckle Institute. And she had been taken advantage of by another writer and never really got paid, and so she was never going to do it again. I said, so if I came up with a book, would you illustrate it for me? And I'll set the contract up right with you. So you can see it can be done. So remember, so far, there's 2 relational things in there. I don't really need to write another book, by the way. That's not what I need to do in life. I actually enjoy going out on a skid steer and running trees over. So then my wife and I started writing, and she started illustrating. And then I thought, okay, I have a daughter who went to Honduras for a couple of years. She has a great heart for the Hispanic people. I think I give her an opportunity to translate it into Spanish. Let's get the Spanish. Not only that, I got all these kids that I work with in these youth clubs. They need to understand God as a shepherd. I need to get this book to them. So now all of a sudden, writing a book and doing this is no longer that somebody asks me, so do you make money on books? I said, I don't even know, but no. My book costs $15. Kohl's at $5. We're not Kohl's. I don't have any way to make it cheaper. I don't know how to do that. The whole thing, though, to me is relational. It's the illustrator, my wife, my daughter, the kids I work with, the families that I work with. I have grandparents reading it to their grandchildren. The whole gospel is in there. It's all relational. That's why any book that I've ever written, I have a certain audience in mind that I'm saying, like, I want you to know this. That's why I'm doing it. Or you can make them fancy, that kind of thing. I don't want to spend any time doing that, actually, but I'll do the best I can. Because the reason we do things is not to enhance our position with stuff. It is to help people. Now, I understand God's going to have to deal with all the, how does it get paid for, that kind of thing. I run a nonprofit ministry, been there 40 years. And last year was the first year in all the years that we were totally out of debt. And then the storm hit. This is all God's business. The stuff side, God needs to give, take away. Job, God gives, God takes away. That's up to him. I need to be the one who has a relationship. I just taught the book of Job to our Nicolay Bible students, and one of the things you realize is that Job counted on his relationship, not his stuff. Ungodliness brings of necessary many evils in its train: condemnation, banishment from God, the wild passions, the miseries of life, gloomy, dismal prospects. But perhaps the most affecting thing of all is the moral perilous, without strength. When we are people who are natural people, 1 Corinthians 2:14, the natural person doesn't accept the things of the Spirit, for they're folly to him, they're stupid to him. The people that are outside of a relationship with God cannot accept what God is saying. Because the problem is not the rules, the problem is the relationship. My dad, who is a great evangelist really in many ways, when he talked to people, you could hear him talk, and they would ask about, what's the answer for this evolutionary problem or whatever. He would never go there. And he would always tell me later as a kid, until they come to Christ, they're not going to understand anything else I say. See, they're not in relationship with God. So how is the Spirit going to manifest anything in their life? First and foremost, they got to want to be in a relationship with God. See, first and foremost, it's really about a relationship with God. I had a guy once who was talking to somebody, and he was talking about how miserable his life was, and how his wife drove him nuts and all this stuff. And then he said, you know what, though? You need Jesus like I have, because it makes such a difference. And I said, shut up. How's Jesus made a difference in your life? You're just like him. Get yourself a relationship that actually has some fruit. That relationships bear fruit. Relationship with God, relationship with each other, there's fruit to that. Byproducts of a self-focused life. One of the great problems in life is when we get out of relationship and we make ourselves too big and God too little. I've never really done a seminar on marriage, and I don't know that I ever will. I don't know that anybody will ever come to hear me. I'm Swedish. We don't do that. I'm kidding, but bottom line really is I have a general rule for my marriage. My marriage is really bad when I'm self-centered. When the world's about me. And I want to use my wife rather than love her. Marriage is bad in that moment. But I need to straighten out. When I do that, the marriage gets good. So it's like, oh. So that would be my whole seminar to you. When things are going rough relationally, it's because you're too full of yourself. Empty yourself of yourself. And see where it goes. Relationships are hindered because we go under arrangements rather than commitments. God never made an arrangement with us. He made a commitment. He sent his son to die. Whether we accept it or not, he made the commitment. When you get married, I tell young people all the time, if that comes through and they get married, and I give them advice a little bit, and I'll tell them, you know what, make sure this isn't an arrangement. This is something that you are committed to for life. I don't care what happens, you're committed to it. I understand there are times where it can't work, but you start with the idea this is a commitment, not an arrangement. Arrangements can be broken. God did not make an arrangement with Dave Wager. When I put my trust in Jesus Christ as my Savior, I have a relationship with him, and it's not an arrangement anymore. He who started a work in me will complete it. I now have the commitment of Almighty God to work me over until I get to where I need to be. That's a commitment. That's not an arrangement. I need to have the same with the people in my life. I need to be committed to my wife. I need to be committed to my daughters, to my son-in-law, to anyone in my life, I need to be committed to them. This is not an arrangement I make. We tend to use things that we should love and love things we should use. And again, if you can write that one down and think about it. I don't think that having stuff is evil, but using people is. Using people to have stuff, making stuff so important, that's wrong. We have stuff. But this stuff is there for the relationship. And the last thing is that if, our passion becomes misplaced. It becomes the strongest motivation in our life. In passion today, people don't know what it is, but they think whatever makes me feel good. There's sometimes relationships are just tough. The reason we like our lawnmowers is because when I turn it to start it, it starts, and I can sit on it, and I can look when I'm done, and the job is done. Lives are messier than that. Being in nonprofits all my life and work with young people, sometimes I think, I'd rather plow the roads at camp. Why? Because I can look at it and say, it's done. I've never been able to do that with a human. I've never been able to look at a person and say, finally, it's done. You finally are where you belong. I can't do that. So it frustrates me because I want to finish it. Yeah, Dave, you're a work in progress. I'm going to continue to work with you until we get to where you want. And by the way, when we do get you there, you're out of here. Because I'm only using this life to mold you into who you should be. So obviously we've got a long way to go. Man, you were built to be relational. You're built to have people in your lives. The Apostle Paul, he basically told Timothy, look at me, man. Watch me. I'll show you how to live. He went out of his way to make sure people were in his life so he could show them who God is. He did that relationally. The Apostle Paul, I can't go into it, he was a tent maker. In other words, it was like, no, that's what I do, but that's only what feeds me. I'm really about relationships. I'm just using the tents to make sure I can get fed. And who knows what he did with all that resource. Don't use what you should love and don't love what you should use. You are relational. If you're miserable, it's because you're messing up on the relational side, not the stuff side. Don't try and fix the misery by getting more stuff. Fix the misery by being better at relationships. Let me pray. Father, again, thank you that you love us. Thank you for allowing us to be here today, to open your word, to see some things that possibly we need to deal with. I ask your forgiveness for so often using what we should love and loving what we should use. Help us to know the difference and apply it in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thanks. I went too long, so no questions unless you come and find me.